Welcome to the pre-scene discussion of the SBL examination paper for the September 2023 session. So in this session, we'll be going through a comprehensive study on the pre-scene which is shared for the SBL paper. Roughly we have around 10 plus pages provided for this first examination where we encounter a pre-scene post-scene scenario. So the focus in the pre-scene is for the student to understand the picture where they are in. The examiner does not expect you to memorize. Obviously, that is very impractical because a copy of the pre-scene will also be provided during the examination. So you can also go through details because you cannot take any sort of annotations to the exams. However, just like in reality, decisions cannot be made instantly. A manager or advisor or else a person of a senior position would basically have time to understand the scenario they are in. That's the purpose why the pre-scene is released in advance, so that students will be able to properly understand the scenario and understand the ins and outs of the situation they are in. So in the examination with the exhibits provided, we should be able to understand the situation surrounding the exhibits and provide a more logical response to the situations provided. So let's have a look at your first pre-scene in SBL. So in terms of content, there are 5 sections. First one is introduction to the case, and the second section is typically on the industry. Okay, information about the industry, because the examiner understands that each student of ACCA will have their own carriers. So we cannot generalize one industry for all because it is very unreasonable. So here, for you to understand the situation of the business and industry, information is provided. Part 3, Courgettes overview. So Courgettes should be the company we are focusing on. And part 4, website extracts of Courgettes. And part 5, Courgettes headline results and cost breakdown. Because here they'll be providing us some numbers, some financials that will help us further analyze and come into conclusions. All right. Cool. In reality, since the pre-scene is provided in advance for a period of 2 weeks, you will have sufficient time to go through and highlight the key points. So for convenience, let me note the key points in a separate document. Great. Cool. So here we have your SBL pre-scene study for the September 2023 examination. Nice. Introduction. Courgettes is a low-cost regional airline business. So the company which we are involved is called Courgettes. The industry is airline, and their target market is, or else you can call this as their competitive strategy, okay, is on low cost airlines. Okay. The competitive strategy is on providing low cost airlines, not the business class, not the high end, but affordable, cheaper airline services. It was established 20 years ago in Courland, a country located in the continent of Hungary. Over the years, it has positioned itself as one of the world's leading low cost airlines. Okay, so achievements: 20 years of history, which says, okay, for the last 2 decades it was present in the market, so it's quite known, and it is one of the world's leading low-cost airlines. So it has its reputation throughout the globe, and it has established itself as one of the major leaders in low-cost airlines, saying that there we have sufficient customers, and is currently the second largest low-cost airline business operating in Hungary. Okay, second largest in Hungary, so it's Hungarian continent. Okay, so it is in terms of passenger numbers. Right. Courjets currently operates nearly 1,000 routes or destinations in over 30 countries. So they are present in 30 countries, and 1,000 routes across Hungary. Its head office is based at Near City Airport, located in the south of Poland. Hungary is a politically stable and economically developed continent of the world. So now about the Hungary continent. All right. So it is a politically stable. So there could be linking with a proper macro environment, where under the political environment we find that there is proper political stability, and economically developed continent of the world. Most of the countries in Hungary form a trading bloc which facilitates free trade. So most countries in the continent are a part of a trading bloc. So they facilitate, or else, so they encourage free trade and free movement of people within it. Free trade and movement of people. It's fine to note every it's fine to note every factor here, so that we can have a proper understanding of the situation. Each country in Hungary uses its own currency. Okay, each country has its own currency, and Poland's currency is the dollar. Courjets operates a point-to-point service, meaning that it operates its flights directly between destinations. So coming back to Courjets, point-to-point service, that means directly from one destination to another destination. They have a direct airline rather than going through multiple checkpoints. Okay, flights available directly to the destination. This means that its passengers do not have to travel to or change flights at a hub. Okay, no need to change flights in between at a hub airport to reach the destination, which helps Courjets to reduce its operating costs. So this will also help them reduce the operating cost. It also keeps costs low through its no-frills approach. Obviously, since the strategy of Courjets is for a low-cost airline, a budget airline, they would obviously go for a no-frill strategy, or else they cannot afford charging a low price. Okay, as you would have learned in the Bowman strategy clock, There are 8 strategies based on eight competitive strategies, of which 5 are successful strategies, right? So the strategy with the low price charged and a low value provided is called no frills, where they have eliminated all additional facilities and provided the basic facility to satisfy the basic need. So they go with no frills product to flight delivery. This approach means that in-flight meals are not provided. So no in-flight meals, those are additional, those are not essential. They have eliminated those unless paid for separately, and includes the automation of a wide range of its processes. Automation of many processes. Right. Including bookings, flight documentation, baggage drop, and flight check-in. So these processes can include booking, flight documentation, baggage drop, and check-ins. So not limited to this, these are some of the processes they have automated. Additionally, it operates a profitable and popular portfolio of routes between over 130 airports across Hungary. Okay, so 130 airports across Hungary. I have inserted that in the above section. So next is airline industry information. So next is information about the industry. Overview: the airline industry encompasses a wide range of businesses called airlines, which offer an air transport service to customers. Normally referred to as commercial airlines, these businesses offer scheduled commercial flights which carry both human passengers and cargo, and in most cases are carried out using jet aircrafts. Commercial flights are those which transport passengers from one destination to another with a pre-booked ticket. Non-commercial flights are either operated privately or by the military. So we have commercial flights, and we have non-commercial flights. Commercial flights provide passenger and cargo transport. Non-commercial flights, private or military operated. Good. The airline industry forms just one sector of the wide aviation industry, which also includes all other aviation related businesses, such as jet engine suppliers, aircraft manufacturers, and aerospace companies. So if you look at the overall wider aviation industry, airline services are just one portion. They have also provided us the other aspects or the other businesses that can be available in the aviation industry. So do not think aviation includes only airline services. No. The airline industry directly and indirectly supports global trade, tourism, and economic growth. So these are reasons for an economy to support airlines. Right. Airline industry supports global trade, tourism, economic growth. Therefore, it has had a major influence on globalization in many other countries. Passenger types. A passenger, okay, so we are looking at passenger types here. A leisure passenger is someone traveling on holiday. So we have leisure passenger on holidays, to stay in a hotel or holiday resort to relax or experience local tourist attractions. So leisure passenger basically to relax or experience, typically on holidays. They travel during holidays. A business passenger, is someone traveling for work purposes. Purposes for work, and will normally be attending a meeting or conference. Both types of passengers may be offered the option to travel first class, business class, economy class by some airlines. Okay. First class passengers pay significantly more for their tickets. We have first class passengers. Price is high. But in return receive a high quality service. High price, high quality. Including dedicated airport lounge, large and comfortable in-flight seats, and unlimited food and drink provided throughout the flight. Business class passengers pay less than first class passengers. They pay less than first class passengers for their tickets and receive a slightly lower level of service. Economy class passengers pay even less for their flight ticket than business class passengers. An economic price ticket normally includes a standard seat with limited legroom and standard and limited in-flight food options. So we have economy class as well. Okay, so low price, low value, I would say, and business classes in between first and economy classes. Right. Airline types by service. Okay, types of airlines by service. So we look at airline types which can be categorized by service. We have three different types: international airlines, national airlines, and regional airlines. Right. So international airlines are the largest and often the most well-known airlines. So they are typically the largest and most well-known. International airlines offer global services, carry leisure and business passengers, and cargo over long distances. International airlines usually have multiple airport hubs which provide customers with access to hundreds of global destinations. The best advantage is multiple airport hubs. So you can have access to many destinations through international airlines. National airlines typically focus on offering services within their home country. That's their typical focus is. But many also offer access to international destinations. A national airline is likely to have a smaller aircraft fleet than international airlines and often also offer services to both leisure and business passengers. So national airlines main focus in country travel. but also has overseas travels as well. Because they are traveling only within the country most of the times, their aircraft fleet is also smaller and often also offer services to both leisure and business passengers. Good. Next is regional airlines. Regional airlines tend to focus on offering services within specific regions. Specific regions. For example, a continent. In some cases, they provide passenger services to locations not offered by either national or international airlines. Right. Next we'll look at the next classification, where we look at types of airlines, not by service but by business model. Right? Business model. We have full service carriers, low cost carriers, charter airlines, and cargo airlines. Right. So let's have a description of each of these. So here, as I said before in the pre-scene, the main focus of the examiner is to provide you a holistic understanding of the industry you will be working with. So this will provide you sufficient understanding or detail about the industry. So if you look at business models, full service carriers, they offer a range of pre-flight and onboard services within the price of the ticket. This may include checked-in baggage, in-flight meals, airport lounges, and multiple service classes such as first class, business class, and economy class. They usually fly national, international, and long haul and short haul flights. So as we said, by business model, full service carriers basically are airlines where they charge all of the costs in the air flight ticket. Offer large services within price of ticket. Low cost carriers aim to gain a competitive advantage over full service carriers by reducing costs. Focus is to gain competitive advantage by lower costs. This is done in several ways, including having smaller fleets and smaller aircraft, by offering a more limited service, and by flying to smaller and less popular airports where landing and ground handling fees are cheaper. So they can look at many aspects. Number one, smaller aircrafts. Let's say when it comes to, let's say, flights where the passengers are quite low, it's good to have smaller aircrafts. It will save fuel efficiency as well. So smaller aircrafts and smaller fleets as well, less people. By offering a more limited service and be flying to smaller and less popular airports where landing and ground handling fees are cheaper. For customers, flights from low-cost carriers are often significantly cheaper. Services such as in-flight meals and baggage allowances will normally not be included in the price of the ticket. Instead, where these facilities are available, customers pay extra for them. Some low-cost carriers offer both economy and business class services. Next is charter airlines. Charter airlines focus on providing passenger services to tourists to a specific destination. Okay. In most cases, they do not sell airline tickets directly, but instead enter into agreements with tour operators who then take responsibility for finding passengers for them. Okay. Focus on passenger services to a specific destination. Right. And typically they sign agreements with two operators. Who take responsibility for finding passengers. Cargo airlines. The main focus of cargo airlines is the transportation of cargo or freight. Transport of cargo, or typically we call that freight. Some cargo airlines are subsidiaries or subdivisions of airlines which also offer passenger services. Some are subdivisions of airlines providing passenger services. So our main airline is providing passenger services, and they are also having a subdivision on cargo airlines whose main task is transporting cargo. So there's a synergy there. Right. Next, let's look at hub and spoke versus point-to-point travel. So we looked at what point-to-point travel is. Next, let's compare the two different business models, hub and spoke versus point-to-point travel. All right. Right. The next section is about hub and spoke versus point-to-point travel. Airlines which operate a hub and spoke model fly from one airport into a hub airport with passengers then connecting from the hub onto a flight to their final destination. For example, let's say there's a destination from country A to country B. If it's a hub and spoke, the passenger cannot take a single flight directly from country A to country B. They have to take a flight from country A to country S and from S to B. Okay, so that's called a hub and spoke travel. Point-to-point travel is basically where from to the destination one air flight would suffice. Airlines operate this model. Airlines operate the hub and spoke model because it allows them to offer more flights to passengers and is designed to optimize an airline's network coverage. This is the purpose of hub and spoke, one of the benefits. All right. Hub and spoke. Right. Benefits is allows to have more flights to passengers and especially to optimize the airlines network coverage. The alternative to this is the point-to-point model, where the airline focuses on providing passengers with a route from origin to final destination. In this model, there is no need to connect passengers through a hub airport as flights operate directly between cities. This model has proved popular with airline customers. Makes sense, right? You are traveling from a country to another, or else from even within the country from a destination to another destination. It would be more convenient if you can take one single flight that directly takes you to the destination, saves effort, saves time. In recent years, and most of the low-cost airlines operate this model. Point to point. Popular with airline customers, and most low-cost airlines operate this model. Nice. Good. So as shown in the image below, for further visual understanding, point to point is where from our destination to any destination we have a direct flight, no matter what our destination is. Where hub and spoke, from our destination to another destination, we might have to take an intermediary air flight from country A to country B, and from country B to country C. So air A to C cannot be directly traveled through one single airframe. Next, key air transport statistics in 2022. Key statistics 2022 global and in Hungary. People transported, passengers per year, overall 3 billion, but in Hungary it's 600 million. So you can see the proportion of passenger transport in the Hungarian continent versus the global case. Average number of commercial flights per day, 73,000 and 15,000. Passenger revenue, $390 billion and $79.2 billion. So this looks at the comparative share of the total global landscape. Next, flight management activities. So if you look at that particular aspect, Hungarian continent versus global airline statistics in 2022. Okay, passengers transported per year. Okay, so if you take Hungary, it's 600 million as a percentage of 3 billion, 20%. So if you take the passengers transportation in the Hungarian continent or from the global landscape, 20% is captured in Hungarian continent. Nice. And in terms of, so it's Hungary as a proportion from global stats. Next, average number of commercial flights per day. Okay, this is 15,000, so proportion of 73,000. 20.5% might not be helpful, but let's have a note of this. Average number of flights per day, 20.5%. Passenger revenue, 79.2 billion in Hungary, 390 billion in global. $79.2, 20.3%. In terms of revenue, 20.3%. Right, might be helpful, especially when it comes to number of passengers and passenger revenues. That provides an indication of the frequency of travel within the Hungarian continent in comparison to the rest of the world. Next, flight management activities. Flight management activities are provided by airports, airlines, pay for these services via airport fees, okay, provided by airports, and airlines pay for these services via their airport fee. We have air traffic control. This is a service provided by the airport itself. Air traffic control is a vital aspect of air transportation. It is carried out by ground-based personnel, specifically trained in monitoring air traffic in a specific location. Air traffic control is responsible for moving aircraft safely and efficiently throughout the airspace system, especially when picking up and landing. Air traffic controllers ensure that aircraft remain at set distances apart whilst moving them between airports along set flight paths. Next, aircraft ground handling. Aircraft ground handling. So in the earlier point, carried out by ground-based personnel, monitor air traffic at a specific location, typically in the airport itself, moving aircraft safely and efficiently in the airspace system or in the airways. Good. In terms of aircraft ground handling, what are the tasks? What do they do? Ground handling refers to the wide range of services provided to facilitate passengers within an airport and to facilitate an aircraft's ground positioning both before and after a flight. Ground handling services include, so this is basically to facilitate passengers within an airport. Includes baggage management, including sorting passenger baggage and loading and unloading baggage onto and off aircraft, customer service management, including gate assignment and pre-flight facilities management, such as operating shops and waiting areas in airports, aircraft boarding management including operating shuttle bus services, for example, shuttle bus services between the airport and the aircraft, ramp facilities, passenger travel documentation management, passenger travel documentation management. Customer service, let's have note of what these are. So once we are done with the pre-scene analysis, listing down the key points, and then we can go through our note to have an overall picture of the case. So here we have gate assignment, pre-flight facilities at the airport. And next we have aircraft towing and refueling services. Including management of an aircraft to or from a parking stand or from one gate to another. And the refueling of aircrafts using fuel purchased by the airline. So refueling is very straightforward. Airport security, including pre-flight passenger screening and security checks. Okay, aircraft security, including pre-flight passenger screening, security checks, baggage scanning, passport control, and all on-site security management activities. Other security related activities. Good. Next is industry challenges. Industry challenges. Demand is cyclical. Okay, we have a cyclical demand. We do not have constant demand, stable demand throughout, right? Because we also discussed types of customers. Customers, in simple terms, come for work related and non-work related. Specifically non-work related for leisure, for travel, for enjoyment. They have their own seasons, festivities, winter season, college holidays. You know, those are the time periods where a lot of people start traveling overseas. Okay. So we have a cyclical demand. Demand is cyclical with demand for flights driven by economic growth. Demand for flights driven by economic growth. So, you know, this additional content I discuss is not necessary for the examination, but this can be helpful for the student to have a better understanding of the facts. They should know why, what's the reason, what's the meaning of these facts. But in the examination, try to avoid inserting additional information outside the preceding, because, you know, those are not expected by the examiner, and that can also, there's a possibility of that also deviating what is expected by the examiner. In the last 10 years, low-cost carriers have increasingly taken market share from full-service carriers by offering passengers affordable and low-cost airline. Right. So in the past decade, low-cost carriers, low-cost airlines market share has increased. Okay, customers switched from full service carriers to low cost airlines. This has made air travel more accessible to a much wider customer base globally. It has also introduced a high level of reputation to the industry. The airline, so this has also created affordable air travel, has widened customer base. Okay, because air travel is now more affordable and accessible. The airline industry has been impacted by several geopolitical events in recent years, such as terror attacks, cyber attacks, and extreme weather events caused by climate change. All right. Recent years has affected airlines. Terror attacks, cyber attacks, extreme weather events caused by climate changes. These have led to both short-term and long-term consequences for demand. Terror and cyber attacks have impacted on customer confidence in the industry, and climate change is increasingly prominent on the global political agenda. customer confidence, impact on fuel is one of the biggest costs for airlines and one of the most volatile. Fuel represents over 20% of most airlines' cost base annually. Fuel, one of the biggest cost, over 20% of most airlines' cost base. The price of jet fuel is strongly correlated to the international price of crude oil, which has been highly volatile in the past few years. Jet fuel price correlated to international crude oil price. The jet fuel price is correlated to international crude oil price. Highly volatile in the past 5 years. This is very problematic. Fuel prices are particularly prone to foreign exchange movements, which can also have a significant impact on this major cost. The airline industry is still some way away from operating craft with alternative fuels, such as biofuels, and most airlines are still fully reluctant on crude oil. Governments and customers are becoming increasingly environmental sensitive, and the expectation for airlines to operate in a greener way is increasing. If the airline industry is to survive in the long term, it will need to invest significantly in alternative fuel sources, as we discussed. Macro environment. Stakeholders are more sensitive, more environmentally sensitive. And expectations of operating in a greener way is increasing. If the airline industry is to survive in the long term, it will need to invest significantly in alternating fuel sources. So, in the future, look for alternative fuel sources to avoid destruction. Yes, if they want to survive in the long term, to avoid being destructed or divested, it will need to invest significantly in alternative fuel sources. So this needs high investment. Environmental factors are a major and increasingly significant issue for the airline industry, affecting both passenger demand and operating parameters. Customers are increasingly aware that their carbon footprint from airline travel is contributing to around 3% of the global carbon emissions. Okay. Airline travel, 3% of global carbon emissions. Okay, and customers are aware. And many customers actively looking for alternatives to air travel. Despite environmental concerns, commercial international air traffic, aircraft operating in the skies, increased by 5% in 2002. According to the latest industry data, the international air traffic control environment is struggling to cope with increasing flight numbers, evidenced by the number of delayed flights rising by nearly 20% in 2022. Similarly, airports around the world are struggling to cope with demand from airlines for flight slots. This is leading to increased congestion at airports, resulting in more delays for passengers. This is also driving up aircraft ground handling service charges for all airlines. Alright, so commercial international air traffic increased by 5% in 2022. Okay, and airports globally are struggling to cope with the demand from airlines. Okay, this has led to increased congestion at airports, led to where is that, delays for passengers. This is also driving up aircraft ground handling service charges for all airlines. Ground handling charges or service charges increased. Good. So we looked at a lot of industry challenges here. Next, we'll be looking at the industry KPIs. Key performance indicators. Airlines use multiple performance metrics to measure and monitor their performance. Some examples are provided in the table below. KPI, available seat kilometers. Definition, available seat kilometers calculated by taking the number of seats available and multiplying by the distance flown. It is a measure of airline capacity. Revenue per available seat kilometer is calculated by dividing airline's total revenue by its total revenue per by its total available seat kilometers. So you get the revenue per available seat kilometers. Okay, so revenue per ASK. So you get total revenue divided by ASK. It is a measure of potential revenue generation. Next, load factor, calculated as the percentage of checked-in passengers in relation to an aircraft's available seats to identify the utilization capacity. Okay, obviously it cannot exceed 100%, seats are limited, but also we have employees of the airlines. However, for them to understand the load factor of passengers alone, percentage of checked-in passengers as a result of in relation to aircraft available seats. Revenue passenger kilometers. Revenue passenger kilometers is calculated as the number of passengers multiplied by the total distance traveled. It shows the number of kilometers traveled by paying passengers, who are referred to as revenue passengers. Carbon dioxide emission per passenger, calculated as total CO2 produced by the entire airline divided by number of passengers. So we discuss carbon emission per passenger. And then punctuality. So all of these are KPIs. See, most of these KPIs are towards environment, so that we have to make sure that these pressure groups relating to the environment do not affect the organization. As well as on top of that, this is having, and this can also be promoted by the organization as a CSR activity, contributing towards its environment. And punctuality, the percentage of flights which land on time at the destination airport. Typically, this means landing within 15 minutes of the scheduled arrival time. So this shows the responsibility towards its passengers, citizens. So these are different KPIs. Now let's look at their impact. Available seat kilometers looks at the airline capacity utilization. Revenue per available seat kilometer shows the potential revenue generation. Load factor, how much of the airline has been utilized. Out of 1000 seats, only 700 seats were filled. It's a problem. Okay, So out of 1,000 seats, 700 were only filled. Only 70% has been used. So load factor. It's about utilization. Revenue passengers kilometer. Revenue passenger kilometers is calculated as the number of passengers multiplied by total distance traveled. So this shows the number of kilometers traveling by paying passengers who are referred to as revenue passengers. And CO2 per passenger calculated as total carbon dioxide emission produced by the airline divided by the number of passengers. So CO2 produced per passenger. Punctuality, the percentage of flights which land on time. Typically this means landing within 15 minutes of the scheduled arrival time. So these are KPIs. And along with this, along with this industry body, the airline industry has a global trade association. Its role is to help formulate industry policy and support airline activity. Industry body. They have a global trade association. Role is to help formulate industry policy and support airline activity. It promotes awareness of the benefits in which the airline industry brings to national and global economies. Promote the benefits brought to national and global economies. Its role is also to develop global standards for the air transport industry, and it provides advice on the airline safety and security by setting clear defined rules. Good. So let me do it like this. Develop global standards for air travel industry and provide advice on airline safety and security by setting defined rules. Right. Next is where we have to look at the overall overview of our company. It is core jets. Let's look at the details provided for core jets. So core jets overview. Core jets was established in Poland 20 years ago. We discussed that by entrepreneurial brothers Eric and Axel Mattsson. They both had worked for many years in the airline industry and had a keen interest in traveling. With money inherited from their parents, they acquired 2 second-hand aircraft. They started by operating flights from near City Airport, located 40 miles from Poland's capital city in the south of the country, to airports located close to 2 cities in the north of the country. Using their knowledge and experience of the airline industry, Eric and Axel spotted a gap in the market in Poland for more convenient and affordable low-cost air travel. So this was a niche market where there was a vacuum. Up to that point, Poland's airline industry was dominated by full-service carriers. So we can say that core jets was started, or core jets had basically addressed the vacuum in the market. And once they provided this vacuum for affordable low price aircraft services or airline services, this had basically hindered the demand for full service carriers. The low-cost business model in the coal and airline industry proved extremely popular with air passengers who liked the convenience of CoJet's point-to-point service. Point-to-point service we discussed, direct service. So who wouldn't dislike it? It's cheap and you can directly reach your destination with one flight. And the significantly cheaper ticket prices than those offered by existing full service carriers. So prior to CoJets, the market in Poland was dominated by full service carriers. CoJets had exploited the market opportunity, providing low cost or else affordable air travel, and we also discussed that they are going with a no frills product to facilitate this. And this became extremely popular with passengers. Two reasons: one is its affordability, next is its point to point service. Over the years, CoJets has focused on operating flights to and from airports from Hungary with the highest customer demand and continually looks for opportunities to extend its network. Okay, so CoJets has focused on operating flights to and from airports across Hungary with the highest customer demand. So when selecting the airports, they selected the airport that had a lot of passenger traffic and continually looks for opportunities to extend its network. Cost efficiency has been its overriding strategic focus. Strategic focus is cost efficiency. This has been delivered through developing and maintaining long-term strategic partnerships with aircraft manufacturers. How? Strategic partnerships with aircraft manufacturers. Key airports. Okay. With key airports, ground handling operators, maintenance contractors who maintain CoJet's owned aircrafts and by operating the latest and most efficient aircraft. They operate the latest and most efficient aircraft. Right. So their advantage, as we discussed, was to make it as the product is more affordable. So how was this done? They were able to enjoy this cost benefit by having strategic partnerships with related and supporting businesses, aircraft manufacturers, key airports, ground handling operators, maintenance contractors. And they have also provided, over the last 20 years, the low-cost model of air travel has continued to be very popular with customers across Hungary, and there are now 30 low-cost airlines operating across the continent. So last 20 years since CoJets introduced low-cost airline. Now we have 30 low-cost airlines. And they have provided us our pie chart. Low cost airline market share 2022. Courgettes owns 14% of the market share, right? And if you look at Brygger in Poland, LKK in Lackland, others 27 airlines consist of 60% of market share. So if you look at 2022 market share in Hungary continent, Courgettes earns 14% market share, but unfortunately market leader is Brygger, 17%. Now keep in mind, we were the initiators of low price airlines, but now we have another competitor who has a greater market share than us. Let's see whether we have facts for this, facts providing the reason for this. Eric and Axel both retired from the business 10 years ago, but since their departure, Courgettes has remained focused on maintaining and strengthening its low-cost strategic position. Alright, so we have in terms of years, routes, destinations, number of routes and destinations, and then passengers in millions. Okay, and we can see overall there's a steady growth. Ownership, Courgettes was listed on the Cologne stock market 9 years ago, 1 year after Eric and Axel retired. Nine years ago, listed in Cologne stock market. The brothers originally retained 35% share in the business when it was first listed, but since then they have sold most of their shareholders in Courgettes and they no longer play any role in running the business. Currently, 80% of Courgettes shares are held by large institutional investors, 10% of shares are held by Courgettes employees, and the remaining shares are held by small private investors. At the start, the founding brothers had 35%. Okay, now 80% of Courgettes shares are held by large institutional investors. %10 are held by Courgettes employees. The remaining shares are held by small private investors. Magda Fisk is the current CEO of Courgettes and has been in place for 10 years. She was instrumental in achieving Courgettes listing. Current CEO, last 10 years CEO. It's Magda Fisk. Next, Courgettes key resources. Courgettes key resources. Next is about routes. Courgettes has a profitable and extensive portfolio of routes which it operates to and from over 130 airports across Hungary. This makes it very popular with customers who find the range of destinations and frequency of flights offered by Courgettes very convenient and attractive. It regularly reviews its route network to exploit the latest demand opportunities. Regular review of route network to exploit opportunities. So this also makes it popular with customers. Why? Range of destinations and flight frequency is high. Causing it to be more convenient and attractive. Convenience and attractive. I want to mention that, but you have to keep that in mind. Next, fleet. So let's look at the fleet. Cojet operates a modern fleet of 300 aircraft, of which 75% owned outright and remain 25% leased. This is normal in the airline industry. Cojet has invested significantly in the latest aircraft, which are more fuel efficient and environmentally friendly. This has contributed significantly to its low-cost strategic position. Okay, invested much in the latest aircraft, more fuel efficient and environmentally friendly. More fuel efficient reduces your running cost. Environmental friendly, which will not arouse the hatred of pressure groups, but also might get the support of pressure groups. This has contributed significantly to its low-cost strategic position and has also positively impacted on reducing carbon emissions. Cojet's average aircraft is 4.5 years old, which is low compared to the industry standard. Cojet focuses on leisure passengers rather than business passengers. Right. Therefore, its aircraft cabin consists of economy class seats with only with a high density layout. Makes sense, right? Cojet is a budget airline. Why should they go for business passengers? Its target is charge less for economic class. So their more focus is on leisure passengers, especially in the economy class. Therefore, its aircraft cabins consist of economy class seats only with a high density layout. This gives Cojet's 150 seats per aircraft. Compared to, okay, competitors are typically having 140 seats. Okay, why? Reduced facilities, it's no frills, right? So they'll have more space to work with. The highest seat density allows Cojet to offer low ticket prices per flight, which is attractive to customers. So we looked at that. We looked at the fleet aspect. So next is technology. Cojet applies data analytics extensively throughout its business. Data analysis extensively applied and considers data to be a very key business resource. It has always been an early adopter of the latest technology. In the airline industry, it currently makes extensive use of technology throughout its business operations, including a mobile app which allows passengers to book flights. Mobile app to book flights, check in for flights, download boarding passes to either prevent or store as a mobile boarding pass on passenger smartphone, and receive real-time flight status information. So we have book flights, check in, boarding passes, real-time flight status. The app significantly reduces the cost of issuing, distributing, and processing physical tickets. An enhanced feature of the mobile app is the integration of live data from the airport's information system with the passengers' booking and flight tickets, allowing personalized instructions and updates to be sent to passengers before their journey. So this will basically have impact, reduced cost, convenience to customer, and personalized instruction, bringing the customer closer to them, so possible customer retention. In most airports, Cojet operates, and communication as well, changes in the flights and updates, all of this will be communicated. In most airports, Cojet operates fully automated check-in machines to help reduce check-in queues. In most airports, Cojet operates fully automated baggage check-in machines to help reduce check-in queues. All aircraft are fitted with electronic touchpads for the crew to replace laptops and printed navigational charts for pilots. This has reduced the need for each flight to carry heavy printed flight logbooks, which has helped to reduce CO2 emissions per flight. Okay, so on top of this, Cojet has adapted fully automated baggage check-in machines. Reduce check-in queues. All aircraft are fitted with electronic touchpads for the crew to replace laptops and printed navigation charts for pilots. Right, the crew are fitted with electronic touchpads. This replaces laptops and printed navigational charts for pilots. This has replaced the need for each flight to carry heavy printed flight logbooks, which has helped to reduce CO2 emissions per flight. Good. Reduced carbon emission. All Cojet's aircraft are fitted with big data servers to collect continuous in-flight data about flight and engine performance. Big data servers in aircrafts. Cojet continually searches for new technologies to enhance and support its business operations, to improve efficiency and reduce costs. Focus continuous upgrading, search for newer technologies. Good, to improve efficiency and reduce the cost. Next is on people. Cojet employs nearly 11,800 staff, including over 2,000 pilots and 6,500 cabin crew. The remaining staff fulfill a number of roles, which including staff operating at airports and head office staff operating in IT, finance, customer services, and HRM. Regular updates are provided to employees on key business issues, which include a regularly updated intranet. So they have an regularly updated intranet is present. Okay, this helps solve business issues. Okay. On top of that, they also have monthly meet the board chat online and a weekly staff newsletter. All Coget's employees undergo a full induction program and have access to online learning resources, as well as career development opportunities. All employees receive regular and scheduled managerial appraisal of their performance. Good. Regular employment appraisal, managerial appraisal. Right. Next is the board structure. So you need to have a proper understanding of the contents of moving on to the next section. All right. Right. Next, let's look at the board structure of Coget's. Coget's has 6 executive directors and 5 non-executive directors, including the chair. The board structure is as follows. So at this point of time, you should just recall a recommendation of corporate governance procedures, which says NEDs, non-executive directors, should at least minimally be half in the board of directors. So we should have at least non-executive directors numbering equal to the executive directors. Here we have 6 EDs and 5 NEDs. But keep in mind, these corporate governance procedures are not legally required, not mandatory, but these are recommendations. The board structure is as follows. We have the non-executive chair right at the top, and then under him we have your chief executive officer. Under chief executive officer we have the other executive directors. When it comes to the other end, under the non-executive chair we have senior independent non-executive director and 3 other non-executive directors. All right. There are 4 subcommittees. So here we have 6 EDs and 5 NEDs. All right. And 4 subcommittees, we have audit committee, nomination committee, remuneration committee, safety committee. All right. Risk management and key risks. Coget's has a detailed risk register and a robust enterprise risk management framework is in place. The board takes responsibility for determining the nature and extent of the risks it is willing to take to achieve its strategic objectives. It is also responsible for maintaining and monitoring the systems of internal control and risk management. Risk management activities are coordinated by the risk and assurance team, led by a risk manager who reports to both the chief financial officer and to the chair of the audit committee. Coget's key risks are, okay, so in terms of the risk aspects, the board of directors are responsible for determining nature and extent of strategic risks, and also responsible for maintaining and monitoring internal control systems and risk management. And then risk management activities are coordinated by risk and assurance team led by a risk manager. Sorry. Okay. Coming back, risk management activities are coordinated by the risk and assurance team led by a risk manager. So we have the risk manager who basically leads the risk and assurance team, who reports to the chief financial officer, and the chair of the audit committee. And you know, audit committee is also involved with managing risk and internal controls. Courgettes key risks. Key risks of courgettes. Include safety and security of customs and staff. Safety and security of customers and staff. Delivering safe and secure operations which meet the needs and expectations of customers and staff. Okay. Safety of customers and staff. So, delivering safe and secure operations which meet the needs and expectations of customers. We can assume, we can elaborate on this, since it's an air travel. It's not only is related to the lives of the customers and staff, but also to their baggage as well as their travel experience, make it more safe. The growing impact of climate change and increasing expectations from customers. Okay. Climate change impact and increasing expectations from customers, governments, regulators, and wider society for a greater focus on the environment and sustainability activities. Climate change, okay. Impact of climate changes as well as expectations of wider stakeholders on the environment and sustainability. Earlier we also looked at aspects done by courgettes to reduce their carbon emission. So these are supportive. These are supportive to these expectations. Earlier we looked at an aspect where, for example, here crew are fitted with electronic touchpads, replace laptops and printed navigational charts for pilots, which will reduce their carbon emission. Right? Cool. Macroeconomic and geopolitical events such as generic economic trends, foreign exchange rates, and volatile fuel prices, which all impact financial performance. Foreign exchange rate changes and fuel prices. The availability, security, and performance of its website and its critical business operating systems. Performance and operation of website and its business operating systems. Okay. Right. Next, we will be looking at an extract of courgettes website. What we do, we consistently deliver low fares to our customers and operate flights to the places our customers most want to travel to point flight, using our cost advantage and leading position at airports across India. Very specific objective. Okay. A very specific objective. Next is mission statement. Now we'll be looking at the mission. to connect the people of Hondria through affordable and sustainable air travel. What about their values? So they have 5 major values. One is on sustainable behavior. Next, putting people first. Drive innovation. Building customer trust. And committed to safety. So how are they driving these values? When you look at sustainable behavior, managing emissions, yes, carbon emissions are now managed. They have taken steps to control the carbon emissions. Investing in efficient aircraft, we also looked at where the fuel efficiency can be improved, and minimizing waste. And on top of this, they go with a no-frill strategy, so they do not provide any excess facilities. So the wastage from those luxury facilities can also be automatically avoided. Putting people first, engaging with employees, offering fair reward, providing development opportunities. This shows their concern for people. Drive innovation, investing in latest technologies, innovation to improve customer experience and affordability. So innovation to improve customer experience and affordability, we do not know the exact facts when it comes to customer experience, but affordability, yes, that's explicit. So we'll have to trust in the data given. So we also know that they are trying their best to improve the customer experience as well. Facts are not yet provided, possibly in the post seen in the examination. The exhibits can also contain data on this, a possibility. Building customer trust, customer satisfaction. Yes, we saw it was Cojet had launched their product 2 decades ago, and post the launch of Cojet's budget airline, this became quite popular, where a lot of customers switched to using Cojets. So there is customer satisfaction that has led to the growth of Cojets. Data protection and preventing bribery and corruption. So these are the values that Cojets has embedded in the organization. Committed to safety, staff health and safety, customer security, as well as emergency preparedness. Good. All right, let me just have a note of the values in case we need. Sustainable behavior, putting people first, drive innovation, building customer trust, committed to safety. Next, Cojet's headline results and cost breakdown. All right, so let's have a quick look at this. Okay, Cojet's headline results and cost breakdown. Headline results and cost breakdown for the year 2022. If you look at the revenue for the past 5 years, revenue has been growing. 2008 it was close to 4,000, it's around 3,800, somewhere around that. And in 2022 it has passed 5,000 from last year to this year. Profit before tax, yes, a growth. Return on capital employed, if we except for 2019, we have observed a consistent growth except for 2019. If you look at the other data, there is a consistent growth. Return on capital employed. What is return on capital employed? Profit after tax divided by total capital. This basically shows for what is the profit earned by utilizing the capital obtained by the organization. The organization invests the capital they obtain and they earn profit. So what is the efficiency of using the capital, utilizing the capital? That is shown by the ROC. Okay, let's assume the ROC is 35%. So here it's let's make it around 12.8%, somewhere around there. So 12.8% refers for every $100 invested as capital in the organization, a profit of $12.8 was yielded. Next, punctuality. So here, in terms of punctuality, 2008 and 19 were really bad. The punctuality was quite low. 2010 to 12, last 3 years, punctuality has also declined. We'll have to see. We'll need to know the reason for the decline in punctuality. When the customer satisfaction is at a high rate, why has punctuality declined? We do not know. There can be several reasons. It can be negative reasons and it can be positive reasons. So this exact scenario is not known, but we can know that customer satisfaction has drastically increased this year from 76% to around 78%. Okay. And finally, we have the cost breakdown 2022. So if you look at the overall cost of core jets, fuel cost 22%. They need fuel to run the airline. Airport ground handling fees. 27%. And then the crew costs to crew 15%. So these three are direct costs needed to run the airline service. Fuel is needed to run 22%. Airport ground handling fees, for them to do their work at the airport to ensure that the airline is operating efficiently without errors on time. So 22 plus 27, 49%, plus 15% crew cost, 64% if I am correct, 24 to 50, 55 to 64%. So out of the total cost of the organization, 64%, almost 2/3 of the organization are directly related costs. On top of that, air traffic control costs are also now direct costs. So 64 plus 9, 73%. The rest, maintenance cost 6%, sales and marketing 4%, depreciation and leasing 8%, and then we have other expenses. Notes to cost breakdown. Crew costs include salary and training costs for pilots and cabin crew. So we have it here. Other costs include IT and head office administrative function costs such as finance, customer service, and HR management. So this basically provides us data on financials. So this is all provided in the pre-scene. This is all provided in the pre-scene. So I'll also have to have a look at this. And also when discussing, let's also let's also have a look at the mission statement. Good. So we have basically listed out data in the pre-scene, information provided in this pre-scene into a list where we have highlighted major points. Just be careful. Okay, many students basically try to derive what sort of requirements will be tested in the examination. That can be done, but do not completely rely on that, because there is a part of the pre-scene, a part of the case study which is not yet provided. So the exhibits provided in the exam can basically change the direction of what the requirement is. So the main purpose of undoing this assessment in advance is for you to really understand what the organization is, what the industry is, and what our situation is, as well as the specific intricate situation surrounding us. You can forecast what sort of requirements, but do not rely on that. Okay, but forecasting sort of requirements can be a good effort for you to exercise your thoughts. You can look at different perspectives, but do not limit it to one or two, okay? Because if you rely on your own requirements, and if the examiner gives some other requirement, then you will be a bit, at a problem. So you have to have your options open. So now let's look at all of the data which we together listed down, and now we'll try to picture out the case. Right. So going through this, our company's name is Courgette, into the airline industry, and our competitive strategy is basically on providing low cost airline services. So we look at typical cost leadership. We have a 20 years of history, so we are not someone who's new to the industry, and we are one of the world's leading low cost airlines and second largest low cost airlines in the Hungarian continent. We are operating in 30 countries, and we have 1,000 routes in Hungarian continent, and we are available. Courgette is available around in 130 airports in this particular continent. So 30 countries, 130 airports, 1,000 routes. This shows the extent to which they have penetrated to the market in the Hungarian continent. So Hungarian continent, if you look at this continent as a whole, it's a very politically stable geography, and it's economically developed as well. So this basically shows how Courgette is able to invest in technology and expect to advance with technology, because it's an economically developed geography. Most countries in the continent are a part of a trading bloc where free trade and movement of people is encouraged. This is also one of the driving factors for Courgette to penetrate amongst many countries in the Hungarian continent. Why? They promote free trade. If there is no such trading bloc, there could be more challenges when setting up airline services in other countries. Each country in the trading bloc use their own currency, so there is no regional currency such as the euro. Currency is the dollar. If you look at our company under consideration, Courgette, we are providing a point-to-point service where flights are directed from one location to another directly. There is no hub where the passenger has to take multiple flights. So point-to-point service where flights are available directly to the destination. No need to change flights in between. This has also reduced the operating cost, and since Courgette want to provide a low-cost airline, they are also pursuing a no-frills product where they do not provide in-flight meals for passengers, but passengers, if needed, they can pay for meals and purchase separately. So they do not provide in-flight meals for free, and they have automated many processes. Automation of processes would make the processes standardized, but on top of that, the running cost, the regular costs are lowered. Yes, the initial cost is expensive, but once it's automated, once the processes are automated, we will have a very minimized cost to operate the systems. So automation of many processes includes booking the process, flight documentation, baggage drop, check-in, etc. Next is the industry. If you look at our industry, the airline industry includes both commercial flights as well as non-commercial flights. Commercial flights basically are either traveling for passengers or transport of cargo. It can be passenger and cargo transportation. Non-commercial flights are typically where the flights or the airlines is owned privately or by the military. If you look at the airline industry, this has supported the global trade, facilitated global trade, facilitated the tourism industry for tourists to come visit, not only for business purpose, but most of them are for leisure, for travel, for enjoyment, as well as supports economic growth. You can understand, right? when foreigners travel to a country, that country is now receiving foreign currency exchange, and this is also an opportunity to attract foreign direct investment. So these are outside the syllabus. We are discussing just for you to understand, okay, why has the case told that airline industry facilitates trade, tourism and economic growth. In the examination, be careful, do minimize or do your best not to bring out facts not provided in the case study. But if they ask you for explanations and justifications are then to facilitate, to explain a fact, then you can bring practical scenarios. Do not bring facts which are not in the case, but to explain a fact provided in the case, you can bring out practical aspects, but that is based on the requirement. Well, so on top of this, there's a high influence on globalization. One is due to the trade bloc facilitating international trade. Next, passenger types. There can be leisure passenger, purpose, based on purpose, passengers who travel for purpose, either to relax, passengers who travel for leisure, that is basically to relax, or for experience. Typically, on their holidays, they basically start traveling for leisure. And there can be passengers who travel for work related. We call that business passenger. And in terms of the cost to value the customer is willing to pay, we have first class passengers where the price is very high, so as the value, so as the service provided. Business class passengers and economic class passengers. First class passenger is very expensive, where the service provided is also luxurious. Economic class passengers, low price, low value. So typically here they go with a no frills product. Okay, if it's budget, no frills, and there are regular airways, yes, there can be some minor facilities. And business class is in between first class and economic class, the prices as well as the services provided. Next is where we can where a description of the types of airlines is provided, which is based on the service. We have international airlines, national airlines and regional airlines. International airlines are the largest and most well known because why? They are operating amongst countries, from country to country, internationally. So they are the largest of the overall airline services. They constitute the majority and also most well known, and multiple airport hubs obviously for them to travel from country to country. And we have national airlines. National airlines, the main focus is on traveling within the country, but also they also facilitate international or overseas travels. Regional airlines is basically where the airlines are only present for specific regions. Next, we'll look at the types of airline. Earlier we looked at airline classification by service. Now we'll look at airline classification by business model. If we look at business model, we have full service carriers, so where they offer large services within the price ticket, very expensive ticket, and this ticket not only includes the price for traveling but also price for other services. That's called full service carriers. And before Coges was brought, Coges launched their airline, full service carriers was dominating the market. And we had low cost carriers. Focus is to gain competitive advantage by lower costs. So they typically have smaller aircrafts and smaller fleets. Next, charter airlines focus on passenger services to a specific destination. We call this charters. They sign agreements with tour operators who take responsibility for finding passengers. So charter airlines, they provide passenger service to very specific destinations, and to get passengers they typically sign agreements with tour operators. These tour operators basically are the ones who many passengers go to for arranging their travel plans. So these tour operators will direct them to these charter airlines. Next, cargo airlines, as the term says, airlines whose purpose is typically to transport cargo. We call this freight as well. So typically cargo airlines are subdivisions of airlines providing passenger airline services. So we have an airline that provides passenger airline services, and also cargo airline will be a subdivision. When some of the passengers would have a lot of cargo, so that is facilitated through the cargo airlines. So there can be a sort of synergy, which is why these, in many instances, cargo airlines are also related to passenger airlines as a subdivision. All right. Next, we also looked at the difference between hub and spoke versus point-to-point travels in terms of airline services, their business model. Some airlines facilitate both hub and spoke versus point-to-point travels. That's what we naturally see as well. When the destinations are quite close, we have point-to-point travel. But for longer destinations, they would basically go for hub and spoke. But when it comes to coaches, since this company is focusing on cost leadership, to reduce costs, they facilitate or they basically target using point-to-point travel, which is also one of the reasons why passengers love this company, because they have a destination and if there's a flight from coaches, that means yes, you can go to destination directly. So hub and spoke allows to have more flights to passengers. Other airlines go for many airlines go for hub and spoke model because they allow the airline to have more flights to passengers, and they optimize the airline's network coverage as well. But when it comes to point-to-point, it's very popular with airline customers because it's more convenient for customers, and most low-cost airlines operate this model because why? One flight, one destination. The good thing, there are both pros and cons with the hub and spoke model. Hub and spoke model, let's say, yes, there is one hub in between. So the passenger has to take two flights from destination A to C and C to B. Right? Advantages: the airway that provides hub and spoke will have passengers whose original destination was C, direct one flight, and also they will have passengers whose destination was B. So from A to B was the original destination. Hub and spoke, the first flight goes from A to C and then C to B. So passengers of both C and B are accommodated together. So we have a large number of customers, allows to have more flights to passengers. Okay, and passengers take two flights as well. So there it can add revenue because one flight will accompany customers of multiple destinations. The disadvantages for the airline company: obviously sometimes the second flight could be of their own airline, or else it could be of some other airline. So this brings the need for strategic alliances and partnerships. And also there will be additional overhead costs for documentation processing, for baggage transferring. So there might be additional costs related to that as well. But if it's point to point, the customer once the customer gets off the first flight itself, the transaction is completely over. So these are things that you could think about, but do not comment on this a lot on the examination unless they have provided a detail. Next, statistics on the Hundian continent against the overall global airlines in the year 2020, in this year. So Hundia statistics as a proportion of global stats. If you look at passengers transported per year, out of the global passengers, 20% passengers are from Hundia. Average number of flights per day. If you look at the number of flights globally, used per day, 20.5% is from Hundia. So the remaining around 80%, 79.5% is from the rest of the world. And passenger revenues, out of the total revenue, 20.3% is from Hundia. So you can see one-fifth or 20% of the activities globally are relevant to the Hundian continent itself. and this Hungarian continent is the major target market for courgettes. Next, flight management activities. If you look at flight management activities provided by airports and airlines, pay for this service via airport fee. So the airport basically provides some auxiliary activities, auxiliary support facilities, that's called flight management activities provided by the relevant airport. And these are provided to whom? For airlines, so that they can have a more secured, a more standard flight journey. So provided by airlines and to the provided by airports to the airlines, So these airlines basically pay for these services via the airport fee. One of the flight management activity is air traffic control, carried out by ground-based personnel. What do? They monitor air traffic at a specific location and coordinate with the airline. And moving aircraft safely and efficiently, moving aircrafts safely and efficiently in the airspace system. So they'll provide coordinations, instructions for the takeoff and drop off as well as any sort of emergencies can be coordinated through air traffic control. Next one is aircraft ground handling. These services facilitate passengers within the scope of the airport. What sort of facilitation to passengers are provided? One is baggage management, customer service management, example assigning gates, pre-flight facilities at the airports, stalls, shoppings. Next, aircraft boarding management, example. So aircraft boarding management, the ground staff provides services for the passengers to board the aircraft. This includes shuttle bus, passenger travel documentation management, ticket checks. Next, aircraft towing and refueling services and aircraft security, example pre-flight passenger screening, security check, baggage scanning, passport control and other security activities. So you also see for the airline to operate, they also need the assistance of the airport. Okay, air traffic control, aircraft ground handling are major examples, so that the airline can properly, efficiently run their operations. What about industry challenges? If you look at the airline industry, it basically takes the form of a cyclical demand. We earlier looked at the reasons for travel. It can be commercial and non-commercial purpose, traveling for work and traveling for leisure. So specifically we discuss when traveling for leisure, there are specific periods in the year where people plan for travels. Traveling in winter is one of the major periods where there is peak demand. Festivities, breaks from college, leaves at work. So these are the periods where there is significant demand, as well as, let's say, there can be other festivities as well. Okay, global occasions. So that's why the demand is a cyclical demand. Next, demand for flights driven by economic growth. The demand for flights is driven by the economic growth. The higher the economic growth, the passengers are more capable of affording flights. So they'll basically create a demand for airline travel. In the past decade, low-cost airlines market shares increased as customers switched from full-service carriers to low-cost airlines. Affordable air travel has widened the customer base. Okay? With the low-cost airlines, it's more affordable. So this has further attracted customers and attracted their demand, because air travel is more affordable and also more accessible. Recent years affected the airlines. Okay, recent years has affected the overall industry, including terror attacks. Now customers are not confident. See, an airline, when it's traveling, when it's transiting, if it encounters a problem, the threat to passenger safety is very high, because it's up in the sky. Next, cyber attacks, impact on customer confidence. This also impacts the customer confidence. They might lose their data. and any vulnerabilities through personal data leakage. Extreme weather events can also affect airlines, because obviously changes in climate can affect the airline travel itself, and this will have an impact on global political agenda. Next, fuel. One of the biggest costs, it's over 20% of most airlines cost base, more than 20% is on fuel. Okay, so if there's a change in the fuel price, foreign exchange risk, then my goodness, we'll also suffer. Jet fuel price correlated to international crude oil price. High volatility on jet fuel price over the past 5 years, which shows a high amount of risk. Stakeholders are more environmentally sensitive, and expectations of operating in a greener way is increasing. Stakeholders, not only shareholders but the wider stakeholders, are now more focused on the environmental impact. So they are very eco-friendly and environmentally sensitive, and they also have expectations from the company to support the environment and to act and to operate in a more greener way. In future, look for alternative fuel sources. That's why they had planned, Cochets has planned to look for alternative fuel sources in the future, and this obviously needs high investment. Cochets will need a lot of money to start this project. If you look at airline travel, 3% of global carbon emissions comes from airline travel. 3% of global carbon emissions, not the country or the continent. Global carbon emission, 3% comes from airline travel. So many customers are aware of this, and many customers are actively looking for alternatives to air travel. So if you are able to find an alternative fuel source which has less carbon emission or no carbon emission, you'll be able to capture a large amount of customers who are very eco-friendly and environmental conscious. Commercial international air traffic increased by 5% in 2002, which shows the people who are traveling for commercial purpose has been increased slightly. Airports globally are struggling to cope with demand from airlines, led to increased congestion at airports, led to delays for passengers, as well as ground handling services charge increase. So with time, airports are now having problems with coping with demand. So since they are not in a proper or fixed stance or negotiation position, there will be problems in the airport services and the airline operations. Let's have a look at the industry KPIs, which is in the pre-scene. Right. All right, it's here. If you look at the industry KPIs, some of the examples or KPIs used are shared. There are 6 shared. One is available seat kilometers to show the airline capacity. Revenue per available seat kilometer that shows us the potential revenue generated. So these are key performance indicators to evaluate the efficiency of Cochets as well as the revenue generation returns. Load factor checks basically the capacity utilization, revenue passenger kilometers, carbon CO2 carbon emission per passenger, as well as punctuality of flights, so that they operate as per the time. So you see, these are key performance indicators, right? The first few looks at, are we properly able to fill up the seats? Are we basically utilizing the capacity of the airline? For example, let's say out of the overall airline, only 30% is utilized. That means 70% is empty. So we could either try to attract customers. If that does not work for this period, let's move to a smaller airline rather than having a big airplane or aircraft where only 30% of the seats are occupied. let's move to a smaller aircraft so that around 80% can be satisfied or filled. So smaller aircraft means less fuel efficiency, so we can save costs. Revenue per available seat kilometer gives us an approximate understanding of how much we will be earning. Load factor shows us the capacity utilization, revenue passenger kilometers. So all of this looks at capacity, revenue, and possible opportunities to reduce overhead cost. Carbon emission per passenger, it's all about the environment. So those pressure groups who are more eco-friendly, environmental sensitive, environmental conscious, so this is to make sure that we have a good opinion from them. And later, if we are quite strong enough in our strategies, this will be a pressure group that will also support us in future litigations or future any problems, ethical problems, litigations. So we'll basically get their support. And finally, punctuality. This is very important so that passengers will build trust in the airlines, trust of efficiency, trust of keeping up its promises. And if you look at the industry body, there is a global trade association established whose role is to help formulate industry policy and support airline activity. So there is a global trade association, which also governs overall. So their role is to help formulate industry policy and support airline activity, promote the benefits brought to national and global economies, and develop global standards for air travel, and provide advice on airline safety and security by setting defined rules. So develop global standards for air travel industry and provide advice on airline safety and security by setting defined rules. So these are the roles of industry body. So if we look at core jets, before core jets came into the market in Poland was dominated by full service carriers. We discussed full service carriers. Core jets exploited the opportunity, the vacuum in the market, by providing low cost, affordable air travel. So it's popular with passengers. Why is it popular with passengers? Affordable, and it's point-to-point service, very convenient in traveling. Strategic focus is on cost efficiency, so strategic partnerships were created with aircraft manufacturers because they provide the aircraft. So in case we want to go for a new aircraft because of technology, here are the people who we need to go to. Next, they also have strategic partnership with key airports, ground handling operators, and also maintenance contractors. These back-end workers are also very helpful for the organization to operate. So having a good relationship is very helpful. And they operate the latest and most efficient aircraft, very important. Latest and most efficient aircraft, core jets. So last 20 years since core jets introduced their low-cost airline to the market, now we have 30 low-cost airlines. So in core jets, they have launched the product or the company for the last 20 years, and now we have 30 low-cost airlines. 2022 market share in Honduras continent, core jets owns 14% market share in the Honduras continent, and the market leader is a 17% share owned by Brigade. And if you look at ownership, the company was launched 20 years ago by two brothers, and 10 years ago they stopped getting involved, and 9 years ago it was listed in the Poland stock market. The company was started 20 years ago by founding brothers, where they own 35% later. And now, out of the shares, large institutional investors own 80% of the shares, employs 10% and remaining 10% among small private investors. And the current CEO is Magda Fisk, who has been operating in the last 10 years. Next is core jets key resources, very important. So in terms of key resources that affects core jets operations, we have routes, fleet, and we'll also look at their focus point. So routes, fleet, technology, and people. If you look at routes, there are 130 airports in Honduras, regular review of route network to explore demand opportunities. So coaches keeps on striving to improve their service delivery. So they regularly review the route network to explore demand opportunities. Makes it popular with customers. Range of destinations and flight frequencies very high. Okay, the routes are popular with customers, and the routes are decided based on the range of destinations as well as the flight frequency is high. If the flight frequency is high, that means many customers are following these routes, and we can also adopt that. If you look at the fleet, there are 300 aircraft, 75% of them owned, 33% owned, and 25% leased. Okay, and leasing aircraft is quite normal because with time, better aircrafts come into the market with newer technology. So for the safety and efficiency of the airline travel, they typically lease it out rather than purchasing. Invested much in latest aircraft, and they have to invest a lot on latest aircraft. Two major reasons: more fuel efficient, and if it's environmentally friendly. And a typical aircraft of Courgettes, basically the life is 4.5 years old, which is below the industry standard. So they haven't given us specific details why it's less than the industry standard, but we just know the facts as well. Focus of Courgettes is more on leisure passengers than business passengers. And economy class seats, we have 150 seats per aircraft, and competitors typically have 140 seats. So in terms of passenger capacity, ours is 10 more. Next, technology. Data analysis is extensively applied. Early adopter of latest technology. Mobile app. To book flights, check-in, mobile passes, real-time flight status, mobile apps can be used, and the impact is to reduce cost, convenience to customers, personalized instruction, bringing the customer close to them and communicating. So this is the impact of adopting new technologies. Adapted fully automated baggage check-in machines. This reduces the check-in queues. Crew are fitted with electronic touchpads, replaces laptops and printed navigational charts for pilots. This reduces the carbon emission. And big data servers in aircrafts for access to the most complete, latest information. Focus continuous upgrading, search for newer technology. So this is the focus in terms of technology by Courgettes. Keep on looking for newer technology and try to improve the service experience. Finally, in terms of people at Courgettes, there's 11,800 staff. Of this, more than 2,000 are pilots and 6,500 cabin crew. Regularly updated intranets can be used to solve the business issues. Monthly meet the board chat online. All right. So here we suggest that they meet the board together every month and chat online very frankly to understand the situation. On top of this, weekly staff newsletters, online learning resources, career development opportunities, and regular managerial appraisal are basically things done by Courgettes for its people. Next is about the board structure. At present, in terms of board structure, there are 6 executive directors including the CEO and 5 non-executive directors including the chair. And we also looked at our corporate governance suggested recommended activities where if the number of NEDs should at least match the number of EDs, executive directors. In terms of risk, board of directors are responsible for determining the nature and extent of strategic risks and maintaining and monitoring internal controls and risk management. Yes, they are responsible, but they have the final responsibility. However, these tasks are basically delegated to relevant committees. Risk manager is there is a position called risk manager in the organization who heads the risk and assurance team. They report to the CFO, Chief Financial Officer, and chair of the audit committee. So here there's a problem in reporting to CFO as well directly, but reporting to the chair of the audit committee is fine, because as per proper corporate governance protocols, audit committee, remuneration committee, nomination committee, these are committees, and risk committee. These are committees which should be basically headed by a non-executive director who is independent. So an independent NED better lead these committees to ensure their tasks are objectively done without any influence. However, risk manager reporting the chair of audit committee is fine, because audit committee has responsibility over managing internal controls and risk management also, and the head of the audit committee is also an independent non-executive director. But reporting to CFO, chief financial officer is an executive director. This is very problematic. This will basically affect the independence of risk manager when performing his task objectively. Key risks co-jets face: safety of customers and staff during flights, especially impact of climate changes that will affect the flight schedule, and expectations of wider stakeholders on the environment and sustainability. If the expectations are unrealistic, that will basically harm the reputation of co-jets. Changes in foreign exchange rates and changes in fuel prices will have an impact, and performance and operation of website. Right. We had a look at co-jets web strikes extracts. So their purpose is to constantly deliver low fares to our customers and operate flights to the places our customers most want to travel to. We also discussed how they select the airports based on the demand or the customer's needs. Where do the customers mostly want to travel to? Using our cost advantage and leading position at airports across Hungary. So they want to use their cost advantage. Currently they are experiencing cost advantage, as well as they are also one of the top airlines in the world. So leading position, using the leading position, reputation, as well as cost advantage at airports across Hungary, they want to establish themselves. Mission statement is to connect the people of Hungarian continent through affordable and sustainable air travel. In terms of values, we looked at 5 different values and what co-jets had planned on each of these values. One is on sustainable behavior, very reasonable. Putting people first, being people oriented. Driving innovation to improve the technology, improve their competitiveness in the market. Building customer trust, as well as finally committed to safety. So these are what was provided in the case study. On top of this, I had not noted down anything related to the co-jets headline results and cost breakdown. Overall, we see that co-jets is doing good. Revenue has been increasing, profit before tax has been increasing, return on capital employed has been increasing, and customer satisfaction has been increasing. The only problematic area is decline in punctuality, but we do not have facts that explains this. In the examination, if they are testing on this particular area, they might give you additional information in the form of an exhibit typically. And in terms of the cost breakdown, we also saw that majority of the costs go for airport grounding handling fees. We also discussed earlier in terms of co-jets strategic partnerships with aircraft manufacturers, key airports, ground handling operators, and maintenance contractors. So airport ground handling fees are 27% due to this additional strategic partnership we are in for them to give additional effort for our airlines. Fuel costs 22%, crew costs 15%, air traffic control costs 9%. These four can be taken when analyzing the cost breakdown, as you know, direct costs. So in the examination, you might be given exhibits detailing the reasons for the stats for the data, which you might have to look into before coming into conclusions. All right. Specifically, the very inconsistent fact here is about punctuality, decline in punctuality, but increase in customer satisfaction. So we'll have to look at, are employees dissatisfied with their job or not? Those details are not given. We cannot come into conclusions, but you might be given an exhibit on this, a possible area. With that, we have basically looked at the whole case pre-scene and have a proper understanding of this low-cost airlines, which has a history of 2 decades and which has completely changed the industry, attracting and moving customers from the full package to the low-cost budget package. So this basically marks the end of the pre-scene analysis.